Good evening, Old Gun Guy here. Welcome to my video on the 220 Swift, the speed champion of the 22 Centerfires. That's the cartridge we'll be talking about. It's a 220 Swift. It's been around for 90 years. It's not seen as popular today as it once was, but it's hanging on there. That's in comparison to a 5.56 or 2.23 Remington. The both 22 Centerfires, and the Swift is the speed champ. I'm going to be discussing the cartridge, a little history of it, and the rifle I'm going to use, which is this Remington mid-90s era, made about 1995, 700 V Varmint and 220 Swift chambering. Going to the rifle first. Like I said, this is made by the original Remington company. This is a heavy barreled Varmint version and a synthetic stock. Going from the barrel, it's a heavyweight barrel. It has a target crown, 11-degree concave target crown at the muzzle to protect the muzzle. And the target crown, purpose of that is when a bullet exits, the gas flow around the bullet is very even. There's no disturbances. Well, that's the theory anyway. Heavyweight barrel, 26 inches in length. So you're going to get all the velocity you possibly can out of the 220 Swift. The action is based on the BDL, the upscale version of the Remington 700. The original Remington company was in existence until the hedge fund people took it over, and they pretty much destroyed it. Why that camera does that, I don't know. It just suddenly shuts it off. Excuse me. 26-inch barrel BDL action. The stock is the same stock they put on their Senderos and their police sniper rifles. This is the HS Precision stock. It has an aluminum bedding block that beds the action and allows you to free float the barrel. Makes for an accurate rifle. I have a Harris bipod on it. You need a good bipod on a good precision rifle. I have a Burris. This is made in America Burris, an old one, full field, adjustable objective, 6x18 power. So the low end is 6, the high end is 18 power. Very fine crosshair duplex reticle with raised target turrets that I adjustable in Redfield ring mounts. Very fine rifle, and that's our little demonstration platform today. We're going to do some shooting with this rifle, and it is proven to be very accurate. When I do the shooting demos, I'm just going to use factory ammo, stuff you could buy in the store. This really is a hand loader's cartridge. It really does shine, and you can really get a lot more performance out of factory if you judiciously hand load for the 220 Swift. The Swift was, let me go into the cartridge and set this aside. The cartridge has been around since 1935. There's an empty case. There's a loaded round. This has a Nosler 40 grain ballistic tip on it. It's federal factory ammo, but I'll go into that. I actually have some 1950s vintage Remington clean bore with the original bullet that the 220 Swift made its reputation on, 48 grain soft point. I'll fire one of these over the chronograph too, just to see how this ancient 70-year-old ammo does. The 220 Swift came out in the 30s, middle of the Depression. The parent cartridge was a 6mm Lee Navy. Never seen the cartridge, never seen a gun chambered in the Lee Navy, but that's where it came from, the cartridge. It's a bit of an oddity today. I don't know if you can see the case head dimension is standard, like 4/73 thousandths of an inch, like you would on a 308, 306, 243. but the rim extends beyond the body. It's not a rimmed cartridge, so it's called a semi-rimmed cartridge, and there's only a few of them left today. If I run this knife blade up the body, you see it hits the rim. Where if I have a 223 here, it goes right up and over because it's rimless. That's what we're referring to with a semi-rim cartridge. 224 thousandths of an inch bullet, standard 22 centerfire like a 22-250 or 223 Remington would use. They're all modern. They've come out in the last couple of years, 22 centerfires, 22 arc. Most of these are designed for long range target shooting. Very heavy for caliber 22 caliber bullets, extremely fast rifling twist. The 220 Swift, the useful bullet weights are 40 to 55 grains. The rifling twist in this barrel, which is standard for 220 Swift, is 1 turn and 14 inches of travel. Whereas the modern 22 centerfires, a lot of them are 1 in 7 or 1 in 8 inch twist. Very rapid rotation. It was designed as a predator varmint cartridge. Animals up to the size of coyote at long ranges, 400, say 500 max. It's very flat shooting, especially for 300 yards. The reputation, it was the first commercial cartridge to exceed 4,000 feet a second, and it was loaded with a 48 grain bullet to do that. And in this vintage ammo I have here, see, let me open it up, I'll take a round out. A cardboard box, cardboard container. It's 50-year-old 220 Swift, or 60, 70-year-old, 48 grain soft point lead. On the box, as we're going into a little bit of history here, it's these cartridges are specially adapted for the Winchester Model 54 and 70 rifles. So that's the original rifle that the cartridge Winchester brought it out for, the 220 Swift. The Model 54 and then later the Model 70. And it was a big deal then, it still is now. It's the speed champion today. The 220 Swift loaded with 40 grain bullets can reach velocities of 4,650 feet a second. It's been loaded to that. I have hand loads that I've pushed it up to 4,550 feet a second, and perfectly safe in a rifle, no signs of pressure. But the factory rounds, you can buy factory rounds that will get up almost to Mach 4 there, 4,400 feet a second. And I'm going to shoot 4 factory rounds today when I do the shooting test. I shot this out of sequence, so I have to do I did the chronograph already. I'm not going to give the results now, just that when you watch it, here's the explanation. The camera, the GoPro, this one here, cut off on me, shut off. The camera that was on the chrono recorded every shot. So there's 6 strings that'll be in the close-up on the chrono. And when I restarted the camera, I just reshot the 2 main ammos I'm going to use, but I'll go into that. I have Federal 40 grain 220 Swift factory ammo. And I wrote on the box 4,350 feet a second, not to spoil the film there, but that's prior testing. I'll shoot it today. It's a 40 grain nozzle ballistic tip projectile. That's this round here with the nickel case. And that's factory. That's fast. That's real fast. The other main ammo I use is this 55 grain VMAX, Hornady VMAX, 220 Swift. You can buy that in Varmint Express. It's in a chrono footage, you'll see I shoot these 2 ammos first. It'll be the Federal first, the Hornady VMAX next. String number 3 is a shot of this classic Remington clean bore ammo from the 50s. And the 4th string will be the Winchester Super X 50 grain soft point, lead soft point bullet, 220 Swift. The GoPro cut off, so I reshot it with the Federal, with me on the camera shooting a rifle, and the VMAX. So basically string 5 and 6 is a repeat of string 1 and 2. So when you watch the actual Chronic Rare footage, if you are into it, that's what's going on. I'll do all the numbers breakdown, energy, velocity averages in the summary. That's the VMAX projectile, polymer tipped, brass cased ammo, good ammo. Hornady makes good ammo. I didn't include any of my hand loads. Actually, I'm a little low on hand loads, but it's really not fair. If you should acquire one of these, inherit one of these, you walk into a gun store and you run across one of these, and it intrigues you, you can get factory ammo. It's still loaded to this day. In fact, this is my first reloading manual. This is written in 1975 or 6, and this is, you're talking 50 years ago. The Swift has entered the twilight years of obsolescence. This is unfortunate. Properly loaded, the 220 Swift is a fine performer. A lot of its early reputation, it was fading away. It's still hanging on strong. There's a dedicated following. Kind of like the 10mm being resurrected. The 220 Swift is hung along. It's a good cartridge, as you'll see in these shooting demos. The early barrel steels weren't the greatest. It had a reputation of burning the throats out after like 300 or 400 rounds. A barrel burner. Model 70s Winchester, maybe in the 50s, they started using stainless steel barrels. This modern Remington barrel, chrome moly, far superior to the stuff they made in the, the 30s and early 40s. So it holds up well. The secret is clean the rifle properly if you want long barrel life, and don't overheat it and then keep shooting. You'll burn the throat out, because it is an overbore cartridge. It means it's got a large powder charge relative to its caliber. That's what overbore means. You can see that with empty 223 case. A lot more powder pushing basically the same bullet to a lot higher velocities. Inherently accurate cartridge. One other thing I want to mention on this rifle, the 700s, the original ones, you can adjust the trigger if you know what you're doing. I'm not going to show anybody how to do that. You take that upon yourself. But this rifle here, I'm going to charge it. I've adjusted down to 2 pounds, and it breaks like a glass rod. And that's how I do it with many of my precision rifles. But I'll just pull the trigger. All right, what we get here? 2 pounds. So you can't ask for better than that. However, if you are a little skilled and a little bit of a gun tinkerer, you may find in this book here, Frank DeHaas, Expanded 3rd Edition, Bolt Action Rifles. You may find some info that might help you to do that. Just saying, do it at your own risk though. There was lawsuits with the Remington trigger. People don't know what they're doing. They maladjusted them. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can close the bolt and have the gun discharge. And if it's pointing in the wrong direction, which it did in a lot of the lawsuits, someone was killed or maimed. So you want to avoid doing that. I'm going to do I'm not going to do the comparative ballistic pendulum test. I'm just going to shoot one shot off the bench at the ballistic pendulum. One plate's damaged, so hitting it with a 4,300 foot per second projectile probably damage it further. So we'll see the energy imparted. I'm going to do a long range shoot, 150 yards. I have 2 plates set up on a new sawhorse, the 220 yard target. I'm going to shoot some soda bottles that basically the size of a salt shaker, and the size of a squirrel or a prairie dog, hanging from strings with the ammo. I'm going to do an accuracy test at 100 yards on a paper target. Generally, depending on the ammo, it's going to group anywhere from half to 3/4 minutes of angle shot dispersion all day long. Um, and it is a fun, it doesn't recoil. It is louder than a 223. 223 is loud too, but the 26-inch barrel, it really ain't unpleasant. Do a thermal effects test. I'm going to use the 40 grain Speedster on the thermal effects target. 6 inches of water, 3/4 inch piece of plywood. I use a fresh piece. Another jug of water, a witness board, another jug of water, another sheet of plywood, another jug of water. And I bet I'm not going to need too many jugs of water for this. I think it'll have quite explosive results. And that's what it's designed to do. The issue I take with this federal ammo, they say medium game, deer and antelope. I wouldn't shoot no deer with this. You know, that's just me. It's not humane, in my opinion. You know, you want something that gives the animal a quick kill. Yeah, I'm really not a fan of 22 Centerfires or anything bigger than coyotes. So, but you do as you wish. The mileage may vary. With that, I think I covered the intro. I'm going to do the shooting test and come back for the summary on what we observed in the very fine 220 Swift. And let's get to it. Okay, I lost all my footage. It shut off for some reason. I'm going to repeat the test. I'm going to include it because the other camera's running. This will be string 5 and 6. 2 of the 40 grain Federals and 2 of the 55 grain Hornady VMAX. When I include the footage, the other camera will have the whole string, including the ancient ammo. But these cameras are quite annoying. Again, 40 grain VMAX. 40 grain Federal. 4313. $43.57. 2 of the VMAX. These are 55 grain Hornady. $37.17. And $36.34. That's really like 22 250 velocities. So, factory ammo, a lot of times it's not what it is advertised at. That's for sure. I'm going to stop this, clean up the mess, and like I said, when I put the footage together, the other shots will be on the other camera. The second thing that's on the close-up on the chronograph. And the light's dipping in and out, so I'm glad I finished the chronograph. On to the next thing. All right, 40 grain Federal. $4,213. $4,301. 3702. That's pretty sedate for the Swift. $36.49. $3,920. That's it for ancient ammo. 3904.
And 38.94. Not too shabby. 40 grain federal. $43.13. $43.57. $37.17. And $36.34. That's really like 22.
Okay, I'm going to do the 100-yard accuracy target. You got one camera running down there on the target, close up, and I'm going to do 3 shots each. First up, in the top left portion of the target will be this Federal 40 grain Nosler ballistic tip. We'll call them a VMAX. That's what it's factory game, factory load. 4,350 feet a second. And this Hornady VMAX 55 grain, 220 Swift. They got on the box is 3680, and that's about what it was on my chronograph. So I'm going to do 3 first up of the 40 grain, and then 3 of the VMAX. Put my ears on. You'll note out of this 9-pound rifle, there's very little recoil. Okay. Now for the top right, I'll do the 55 grain Hornady VMAX Varmint Express. It's this stuff here. Shoot the muddy one first. All right, top right target. And the last one. I think I pulled that just a hair to the right. All right. I'm going to pause this camera, go down and retrieve the target. All right. Did a 100-yard accuracy target. The nozzle ballistic tips were half MOA. And I did pull the one shot a little bit to the right. Otherwise the VMAX would be sub MOA. I got 3 12-ounce soda bottles hanging from the saw horse down there on a string. About the size of a prairie dog or a squirrel. So I'm gonna, first shot I'll use is the Hornady VMAX on the right bottle, and then I'll go to the middle bottle on the left. I'll probably use the Federal for the other two. First up, 55 grain Hornady VMAX. Right soda bottle. And that soda bottle is vaporized. Try to fiddle with the 40 grain nozzlers on the center and the left soda bottle. 4,350 feet a second. And that one's vaporized. And that'll the one on the left. Yep, all gone. I'm gonna pause this camera, and then I'm gonna do a long range demonstration. Do this over. All right, at the 100-yard target, it's icy as heck out here. Single digits, and I threw it out, so there's a little ice under the snow here. I just fired 2 shots of the 40 grain Federal and the 55 grain Hornady VMAX, just to make sure the gun was still sighted in. I haven't shot it in about a year. It's sighted for 200, so that's why it's printing a little bit, about 1.75 inches above point of aim. The point of aim here, this is about 1 inch. This is almost 2 inches. The 40 grain VMAX is a lot higher velocity, so it's going to print higher. I'm going to shoot the 40 grain Federal. They look like VMAX bullets. They're polymer tipped. At the top left target, and 3 shots at the 55 grain Hornady VMAX at the right target. Just to repeat this on camera, I'm going to zoom the camera in on a target and go back to the bench and take the shots. The other camera will be on me shooting a rifle. Right, we should be good there. Okay, the VMAX is about a half MOA, the 40 grain nozzle ballistic tip, I'm sorry. And it's the VMAX is a little over 1 MOA. I'm going to bring this target back, zoom the camera out. Alright, I'm going to just repeat this if it didn't get on camera. The 40 grain nozzle ballistic tips, the Federal, about a half MOA, 2 inches high. The VMAX is about one shot on the other camera. I felt I pulled it to the right, and that's me. It'd probably be a sub MOA too. But I got another little demo I'm going to do. Go back to the bench. I got these. Let's see if we can set this up. Let's see. Okay. All right, I got 3 12-ounce soda bottles hanging from that stand. I'm going to engage them with the 220 Swift. They're about the size of a squirrel or a prairie dog, and there's only 100 yards, so it's like chip shot. So I just got to remember to aim about an inch low on the 55 VMAX and about 2 inches low on the 40 grainers. I think we're in there. I'm going to go back and we'll take the shots. Blown to smithereens. Blown to shreds. Clean that up later. Okay, I'm going to just do one shot on the ballistic pendulum plate. I'm not going to use the 223. The center plate was previously damaged by 223 rounds. 2 of them went through it. It must have been uneven heat treating on the plate. So I'm going to recycle that back further in the range. Other 223s and all other kind of rifle rounds have hit it and done no damage. So it's just a sore spot in the plate. I'm going to fire one shot at the center plate. From this bench, it's 35 or 40 yards. 40 grain nozzle ballistic tip. And see what, if anything, energy at parts. The other camera's close up running on the plate. And we'll see what we see. A lot of zip there. Next up, I'm going to do some long range shooting. I'm going to shoot the 220 yard plate. I have two plates set up on a new sawhorse at 151 yards. One's a 6-inch plate, one's a 10-inch plate. And I'll take a couple of shots with the long range camera just to show you how fast it gets down range. Let me pause this. Okay, I'm not going to do a comparative energy test. I usually do it with a 223. I'm just going to zap this center plate. It's damaged already. It's AR500, but apparently the heat treating was uneven. I've hit it with 223s, nothing. And these 223s, just 55 grain FMJ, punch holes going through it. And you can fire one shot back from the bench. That's a good 40 yards, 35 yards away. I'm going to leave this camera running close up on it and see if the 40 grain nozzle ballistic does anything to it at 4,350 feet a second. A lot of zip there. Next up, I'm going to do some long range shooting. I'm going to shoot and a 220 Swift. Almost made it through. Big gouge on the plate. And I don't know if this will show up. It's all bulged out. But I kind of expected that. Okay, I'm going to do a terminal effects test out here where I usually do the chronograph. It's just too slippery in the woods. And I don't feel like hauling the jugs up and down the hill. So what we got here is 6 inches of water, first piece of 3/4 inch fly, simulating heavy bone, another water jug, 6 inches, witness board, another water jug, a previously shot piece of plywood, the 22 Magnum one, another 2 water jugs behind it. I'm going to shoot it with the 40 grain, looks like a VMAX projectile, polymer tipped in the Federal. It's doing about 4,300 feet a second, 4,350. So I'm going to put this camera back out of the way. I'm going to have the other one running in slow motion. I'll get the rifle, and we'll take the shot. Okay, let's clean that up. We'll autopsy it and I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Drilled it right there. Had vaporized the jug. The bullet completely, there's just a couple little fragments on the table here. A little tiny piece of jacket. Got a mark on the plywood. So, that's a, for small varmints, that's what the round was designed for. On the packaging it says deer. I would never hunt a deer with that. You just have a massive surface wound. The animal die of long death there. But that's what it's designed to do. The super high velocity VMAX. Shoot flat, 40 grain, and blow up prairie dogs or groundhogs or even coyote. But That's about it for the terminal effects test. I'll go on to the next thing because I'm shooting kind of out of sequence as I can with the weather. So do the long range shooting next. Okay, I'm gonna do a little long range shooting. This will show the recoil because it's gonna recoil most off of a bench, and the recoil's really nothing. I got my 220 yard plate. I got 2 new plates at 151 yards. It's on a new sawhorse I built the other day. I threw it out there. One's a 6-inch plate and one's a 10-inch, I believe. I'm gonna get one left of the 40 grain nozzle ballistic tip. I'm gonna shoot that at the 220 yard target. I'm gonna use this long range. This camera can zoom in on the plates at that distance, and I'll take the shot, and then I'll shoot the 150 yard plates. I burn a couple of rounds up. I think I'll shoot a couple of this 50 grain saw point too. It ain't zeroed in, but we'll see what we get. All right. Then 2 plates in the center there, in the lower part of the frame, are 100. The next 2 are at 151 yards, and the last one's at 220. First up, the 220 yard plate with the 4,350 foot a second nozzle ballistic tip, 40 grains. Oh, gets down there pretty quick. And let's try 2 at the 150. Six-inch plate. Ooh, dead center. And do it again. And let's try some of this. Try 3 rounds. This is 50 grain. Winchester. And I shot the bigger plate at 150. I tried a little plate now. That's out of money too. And back out to the 220. Stop that. I think on the video you can see there's very little recoil. I have to weigh the rifle. As I'm shooting this out of sequence, I'll do that. But 220 Swift, very fine cartridge. I'm going to go back in for the summary, wrap this all up, and that'll be that. Alright. Them 2 plates in the center there, in the lower part of the frame, are 100. The next 2 are at 151 yards, and the last one's at 220. First up, the 220 yard plate with the 4,350 foot a second nozzle ballistic tip, 40 grain. Oh, gets down there pretty quick. And let's try 2 at the 150. 6-inch plate. Ooh, dead center. I'll do it again. And let's try some of this. Yeah, try 3 rounds. This is 50 grain Winchester. And I shot the bigger plate at 150. I'm gonna try the little plate now. Yeah, that's on a money too. And back out to the 220. I'm back for our summary. Hopefully this camera doesn't keep shutting off. It's getting quite annoying. Did the chronograph. I'm going to go over that first. I actually did it out of sequence. I did it the other day because I had some sunlight. For the chronograph needs proper light to record the bullets. So I did it then. This camera shut off after I did my first 3 strings, 4 strings. I had 2 cameras. The close-up camera recorded all 6 strings, and I shot string number 1 and string number 2 were these 2 ammunitions: the Federal 40 grain nozzle ballistic tip and a 55 grain Hornady VMAX. That was string 1 and 2. 3 was this ancient Remington clean bore, which did pretty good. I think it was 3,920 feet a second. And then I shot string 4 was this Winchester Super X 50 grain jacketed saw point, all varmint bullets. Although the Federal says it's good for deer, which I would disagree with. Camera shut off, so I had to reshoot the camera on me video. And I wasn't going to do all the ammunitions again, so I just did the main 2 I was using: the Federal 40 grain 220 Swift and the 55 grain Hornady VMAX. And since it was 4 shots of each in the 2 different strings, I combined all the velocities together. So first up, the Federal 40 grain nozzle ballistic tip. Stuff you can buy in a store. It averaged just about 4,300 feet a second, 4,296 feet a second, which translates to 1,639 foot-pounds of energy. The Hornady 55 grain VMAX, 3,775 feet a second, and 1,741 foot-pounds of energy. The 1950s Remington 220 Swift clean bore, 48 grain saw point. The velocity was 3,920 feet a second, and the energy was 1,638. The Winchester 50 grain jacketed soft point, the velocity was 3,899 feet a second, and 1,688 feet a second was the energy foot-pounds, 1,688 foot-pounds of energy. It's a very fine cartridge. It shines if you hand load. You can make it, really hot. It's still the undisputed 22 velocity champion, I should say. The 22-250, which was standardized by Remington in 1965, I think, became a factory cartridge. It was a Wildcat before that. And the 220 Swift's been a factory cartridge since 1935. So that 30 years on a 22-250. 22-250 is far more popular. It's in widespread use, but like my reload manual from 50 years ago said, that it was on the edge of obsolescence. Well, it survived the obsolescence, and they're still manufacturing some rifles, and they are manufacturing ammunition for the rifle. It's a very fine round. What's its primary purpose? It's a hunting tool for predators up to the size of coyote, groundhogs, pests such as prairie dogs, any type of rodent or varmint you may choose to shoot. If you're looking to hunt with, for pelts, you got to be careful with the bullet selection because it is quite explosive. The varmint bullet is driven at velocities up to 4 times the speed of sound. With some of the modern powders, some of the factory loads have duplicated the 220 Swift with the 250 Remington, and they've kind of let the 220 Swift language. Although the Federal 40 grain stuff is pretty hot. It's pretty hot stuff. 4,350 feet a second or so. Oh no, on the 4 shots, I had one that was really deviated like 75 feet, but the rest of them are up there over 4,300. That's why you want to run an average of 42.96. My hand loads with 40 grain bullets exceed that, and my hand loads with 55 grain bullets exceed what we got here. And but if you're not a hand loader, that's why I just did factory ammo that you buy off the shelf. If you're interested in the cartridge, you're interested in the rifle, or you inherit such a rifle, they're very fine firearms. Pleasant to shoot. No recoil, really, very little recoil. I did weigh the rifle, I forgot. I think I said in one of the video clips it's 9 pounds. It's 11 and 3/4 pounds as equipped. Scope, bipod, sling. It's you shoot an 11 3/4 pound rifle with a 22 Centerfire. There's no recoil. It's very minimal. You won't even never notice it. The downside of getting to high volume shooting, like prairie dog shooting, you'd heat this gun up, pretty quick. And if you didn't let it cool down properly between the rounds, you'd burn the throat out. Or you would start lessening the accurate life of the barrel, and that you don't want to do. Any high velocity rifle in this range, you gotta make sure you get all the copper out of the bore when you clean it. Use a good copper bore cleaner. That's my recommendation. I enjoy shooting the Swift. Like I said in the video, I haven't shot it in about a year. It's very accurate, but it's a very fine flat shooting varmint killer. And I did, just to speak about the 22-250, it's descended from the 250 Savage cartridge, the 250 3000 they called it in the 20s. It was the first commercial cartridge to exceed 3,000 feet a second, 87 grain bullet, the 250 Savage. Wildcat took that case and necked it down to 22, hence the 22-250 designation, and became a very popular Wildcat. And Remington standardized and made a factory load in 1965. But the Swift's been around 90 years, 1935, and it still has a loyal following and still hanging on. And I enjoy it. When I ran across this gun 20 years ago, I bought it up in a heartbeat. I got a good deal on it too. So somebody shot it, didn't like it or whatever, and I had the scope laying around, made it up with it, and it makes a very fine predator varmint package. In fact, I had a pack of coyotes out here last night that woke me up in the middle of the night. They were howling. They were close to the house still. They do that again tonight. I'm gonna leave this thing out. There's gonna be swift justice. How's that? Did the ballistic pendulum. I only did it shooting off the bench at the one plate. I had the camera close up on the plate. That one plate has been damaged by 223s. Two of them went through the AR 500 plate. I pounded it with many other 223s and 7mm magnums and you name it, and it hasn't harmed the plate. Apparently the heat treating is off in the middle of the plate, and it wasn't as hard as it's supposed to be. I shot the 220 Swift, the 40 grainer, 4,350 feet a second, and it burned almost through the plate. I knew it would do that. Burned a big chunk through the plate. That plate I'm gonna take off and put further down range, so I don't get any spoil back or anything like that. But I didn't do the comparative. I didn't do a comparative recoil test with a 223 in this because it's kind of silly and it's too slippery in the woods. There's ice all over the woods. Very hard walking out there. So I didn't feel like falling, dropping rifles. So, but shooting off the bench, I did a lot more shooting off the bench. That's the most recoil you're going to absorb, and it's very minimal. I did the accuracy target at a 100 yards. Got that over here. Here we go. Off camera, I fired 2 shots of each ammo. This is the 40 grain Federal. This is the 55 grain VMAX. Just because I haven't shot the gun in a year, I wanted to make sure it was sighted on. I think I sighted it for 200, 250. So the higher velocity 40 grain shoots a little higher. This is about 1 inch high. This is about 2 inches high. The on-camera shooting, same ammo. There's 3 shots there. That's less than a half MOA, and not almost. The 2 of them are the same hole, and one's right next to it. Yeah, about 2 inches from the point of aim high. The VMAX, I threw 1 shot. I knew it when I pulled the trigger on a bench, but they would be, you know, just about MOA or under. That you know, that's me. So very accurate rounds. My second shooting demo there, I had some 12-ounce Coca-Cola sodas hanging from strings, and I fired 3 shots. I think I did 1 55 grain VMAX and 2 40 grain Federals, and vaporized all 3. You know, 100 yards is really pot shots. And that's about the size of a squirrel or a prairie dog. You know, a little Coke bottle like that. No problem. You can shoot them things all day until you get, you know, until you bored yourself silly with it. I was amazed at this when I did the chrono. I forgot to mention the old original 48 grain loading. This stuff's like 70 years old. I ran across it in a shop. It was in good shape, so I bought it. I was curious to even see if it fired. It fired fine. It's 70 years old. Did the accuracy test, did the long range shooting. I did, one camera's got like a telephoto lens, you could zoom in on the distant plates. I set up a new sawhorse. It's at 151 yards exact, laser measured from the bench. So 150 rounded off with 2 plates. There's a 10-inch and a 6-inch plate. I'm shooting a 6-inch plate. I think I shot the 10-inch plate once. The 220 yard plate, it gets down there lightning fast. You know, you're pulling the trigger and it's dings already at 220 yards. Very fast round. The ballistics chart on this Federal, show you, give me an example how flat shooting the 220 Swift is. They have both the zeros at 100 and 200 yards. The 200 yard zero, it's a 1/2 inch high at 100, 3.9 inches low at 300, you know, dead on at 200, a foot low at 400. That's as flat as you can get, just about. 500 drops down to 27 inches low. The muzzle, they have 4250 here at 300 yards, 2766, 400 yards, 2367, 500 yards, 2,000 feet a second. The 100 yard zero, they got it out to 300. So if you're shooting like prairie dogs or whatever, 0 to 100, it's 1 inch low at 200, and 5 inches low at 300. And if you're shooting prairie dogs or rodents or groundhogs, you'd be doing the 300 up to 300 yard distance. Very flat shooting, accurate cartridge, pleasant cartridge. I'm glad it still hasn't gone obsolete because this is a fine cartridge. And terminal effects test. 6 inches of water, 3/4 inch piece of plywood. It's an analog for human or animal, game animal. 3/4 inch piece of plywood's heavy bone. Water jug, witness board, another piece of plywood, another water jug. I knew I wouldn't need all the water jugs, and I didn't feel like going in the woods, so I shot it in my where I do the chrono usually. The 40 grain nozzle ballistic tip at 43 and change. But right in that little hole there, detonated the jug. Left a couple little fragments on the table, and I thought it didn't hit the plywood. When nothing hit the plywood, but I was in error. There's a little chunk of it. It looks like the base. It's just in the wood here. I didn't bother digging it out. We're trying to dig it out. But, you know what? I did dig it out. Just the base of the bullet. a little tiny fragment there, and there's fragments all over the place. So basically it did that to the plywood, with that little nick in it, which is nothing. So, like I said, I wouldn't be hunting deer with that round. You just wind up with a massive surface wound. But you shoot a groundhog or a woodchuck with that, you blow them right up, due to the velocity. Yeah, the terminal effect test, I think I give an ample demonstration of this final cartridge. And if you do run across one of these Remington 700 Varmints, they're fine rifles. They made them with stainless barrels, stainless steel action. The stocks are very good, HS Precision. They put them on military and police sniper rifles, same stock. This got the little gray marbling speckling in it, like the Remington Senderos. They're long-range hunting rifles that they were making at the time. Another fine rifle. I actually have 1 in 300 Win Mag. This old Burris, American-made Burris, very good scope. Perfect for this gun and this combination. I've shot a lot of critters with this. Vermin and stuff I didn't want around, and it's instantaneous death. It's like a lightning bolt. So with that, I'm Old Gun Guy. I'm going to end this video here. The filming's been awful. Sub-zero temperatures, rain, snow, ice. There's ice all over the place, so it's kind of hard. On my uneven, I don't have a flat range. My uneven range out there with rocks and the stream running through the middle of it, a creek. Just slip sliding away. With that, have a good evening.